had this one weekend where I barely slept, too much coffee, too much energy drink, and way too much gaming. Around the third night, I started feeling weird, like something was brushing against my arms, a light tickle, like a hair. At first, I thought I was just imagining it. Maybe it was the lack of sleep or the caffeine, but the feeling kept coming back. So I paused the game, leaned back, and looked down at my arms. And that's when I saw it. Tiny movement, little black dots, tiny spiders. I blinked hard, wiped my arm, but they didn't go away. I wasn't hallucinating, they were real. Then I looked up and saw thin web strands hanging from the ceiling. My eyes followed the glint of silk straight to a tiny hole in the ceiling tile. They were coming from inside. I grabbed a can of bug spray and blasted it right into the hole. What happened next still haunts me. Dozens, no, hundreds of tiny spiders came pouring out. Like a faucet turned on, they came down in waves, falling from the ceiling, swinging from silk strands, landing on the desk, my chair, and on me. They were crawling across my shirt, up my neck, down my arms. I stood up so fast I knocked the chair over, slapped myself clean, panicked, tore off my shirt, and still they kept falling. I ran out of the room, slammed the door, and didn't return for hours. Later I called pest control. They said a nest had formed inside the crawl space above my room. To this day, when I look up at any ceiling, I always check twice. It was a late autumn night. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted, and I stepped onto my front porch. Before I could even take another step, I walked right into something, a sticky wall. It took a second to realize I had stepped straight into a giant spider web, stretched across my front door. I froze. Then I looked down. Dozens of baby spiders were crawling on me, tiny, fast-moving things, racing across my jacket, my arms, my legs. I started panicking, swatting them off, brushing wildly, and that's when I saw them, the parents. Two massive spiders, one on the side of the doorframe, the other right above it. They were easily the size of my hand, thick, hairy, unmoving, just watching. There was no way I was walking through that door, so I ran to the back of the house, kicked off my shoes, threw my clothes in the laundry, and jumped straight into the shower. I stood under the hot water, shaking, scrubbing my skin and hair. That's when I saw it, in the corner of the shower wall. Another one, a single baby spider, crawling toward the faucet. Even after all that, one had made it in. And ever since then, every time I walk up to my front door, day or night, I check for webs first. I got home late one evening after a long shift. My phone was dying, and as usual, I reached under my bed to find my charger, but instead of the familiar cord, my hand touched something soft, almost like a sponge. Curious, I gently squeezed it, and that's when I felt it. Dozens of tiny legs crawling up my hand. I jerked my arm out in shock, and what I saw made my heart nearly stop. Tiny spiders crawling everywhere, up my wrist, over my forearm. I let out a scream and scrambled backward, trying to shake them off. I ran to the bathroom, still flailing, turned on the shower, and jumped in fully clothed. When I looked in the mirror, I saw more of them falling out of my hair. Later that night, my dad helped me move the bed. What we found under there? A large, torn spider egg sac, the kind that holds hundreds of babies. And behind it, hiding in the far corner against the wall, a massive spider, bigger than my hand, just watching. We got pest control in the next morning, but for days after, I swore I could still feel legs crawling on me, even in my sleep. It started with a strange sensation in the middle of the night. I was deep asleep when something large brushed against my leg under the blanket. Still half conscious, I twitched and thought maybe it was checked the sheets, the pillows, even the floor. Everything was clean. Confused and groggy, I convinced myself it was just my imagination, maybe leftover nerves from a horror video I watched earlier that night. But the next night it happened again. This time I felt something crawling slowly across my stomach. I flung the blanket off and jumped out of bed. My dad came in after hearing me shout. He checked everything, top to bottom, and once again, nothing. At this point, I started to think something was wrong with me. Maybe stress, maybe paranoia. Until the third night, I had barely fallen asleep when I felt it again, heavier, moving across my shoulder. I leapt out of bed, flicked the lights on, and froze. On my pillow sat the biggest spider I'd ever seen. It was nearly the size of my face, hairy, still, watching. Before I could even scream, it scurried under my bed and disappeared. We tore the room apart but never found it. Even now, I don't sleep without checking my sheets 3 times. This happened during a weekend I spent at my grandmother's house. My uncle still lived with her, and every now and then, I'd visit to help him with work for some extra cash. That night, after a long, sweaty day of lifting crates and fixing pipes, I was completely exhausted. By the time I hit the guest bed upstairs, I could barely keep my eyes open. I left the TV on at low volume and sank into the mattress like a rock. The only problem, it was a hot night, the kind where the pillow always feels too warm, no matter how many times you flip it. So I did just that, half asleep. I flipped the pillow over to the cooler side, then pressed my face into it. Only it didn't feel soft. It felt furry. My cheek was pressed against something thick, warm, and alive. My body reacted before my mind did. I jumped back and threw the pillow off the bed, hitting the floor with a loud thud. That's when I saw it. A spider, but not just any spider. It was massive, bigger than my hand, legs spread across the fabric like it owned the place. A full-grown huntsman. The thing dashed across the floor so fast I couldn't even scream. It disappeared under the dresser, leaving me frozen and breathless. I didn't sleep that night, and I'm pretty sure that spider is still living somewhere in my grandmother's house. If any of these spider stories made your skin crawl, let us know in the comments below. Subscribe for more terrifying encounters, and remember, the next shadow you see crawling might not be in your imagination,